Welcome to Beyond Bitcoin, open source BitShares Hangouts. These Hangouts start every Friday at 1 p.m. UTC. Remember, go follow the BitShares tag on Steam. Also, make sure to follow Official Fuzzy, who is hosting these Hangouts. To participate, go to the weekly BitShares Open Source Hangout Open Agenda post. Simply RSVP in a comment with your topic or proposal. BitShares has enterprise scalability. It's the fastest decentralized exchange in the world. And it's competing to be the fastest blockchain in cryptocurrency. With user-issued assets, UIAs, you're able to create and trade your own cryptographically secure cryptocurrency. You can build and trade smart coins based on world-class financial smart contracts. You can define and trade market-pegged assets, MPAs, that track the price of real-world investment vehicles, freeing from exposure to middleman risk. Work for the chain based on votes by community, self-governance and separation of power built in.
Welcome everyone to another Beyond Bitcoin BitShares Hangout. Today is July 14th, 2017. And we're going to start doing a few other things, I think, on these Hangouts. It's going to be important to get the BitShares state of the network and grab some of the highlights from BitShares from the week and give some of those updates in the beginning of our Hangouts. We're going to then move into some questions from newbies for this format, and then we're going to move into work proposals and anything else that is important to you. You are joining one of the open source Hangouts for BitShares, and it is a place where anybody can join, can bring up topics of importance, and we ask that you consider posting to our RSVP with anything of importance that you would like to bring up at the Hangouts, whether you can be there or not, or to post them and then bring them up at the Hangouts so we can start paying individuals who participate in these open source Hangouts. Remember that the goal of these Hangouts is to make it so even if something happened to me, that the entire community could still run them, and that is the intent in the future, correct? So I want to say thank you to everybody who's joining up today, and let's go ahead and get started with the BitShares State of the Network updates. Again, you can go to Steam Power on the Steem it blockchain at Steam Power, and he posts these on a weekly basis to get all of the updates. We are just getting a small number. BitShares Blockchain Foundation is started by Xerox this week. Public announcements, public and private mailing lists, and BitUSD worker escrow management are going to be its three tasks at first. It might expand, but for the time being, these are going to be the things that it focuses on bringing to the community. So I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Xerox, and I'm sure everybody else would like to thank Xerox for this. Alfredo's worker proposal has gone through as of the 12th of July, formally employed by the BitShares blockchain. Congratulations, Alfredo. KenCode has emerged and released a bunch of updates, one of which is going to be the Smart Coin Wallet version 2, codenamed Carbon, and has produced BlockPay, IPF, Stealth, and Graphene J updates. So it's good to see KenCode is back into the mix and that he is doing some good stuff. Thank you, KenCode. Then CM Steam has posted, we've talked about this a little bit before, but he has now posted coinage statistics for BitShares assets, which is BSIP-0021. And CM Steam has also created a BSIP proposal, BSIP-0022, for expiring votes for witnesses, committee members, and proxies within the BitShares network. Then Steam Power, for the top ones that we're covering here, Steam Power nodes need to be updated from the event that caused the network to halt for a brief period this week. So everything was fixed pretty quickly from what I noticed. Within 24 hours, of course, everybody was updating and everything from there, but these types of things do happen with technology, and the question really most of the time for me anyway, and I believe for a lot of people in this space, is how quickly can something be recovered, and how quickly can the network find consensus to to change itself and adapt and mend. And we're essentially, we saw that BitShares does a dang good job with things like this when they do come up. So congratulations, everybody, and thank you for making this this week turn out a lot better than it could have if everybody wasn't working together. And with that said, we're going to go ahead and move into, there's a segment that I'd like to start where if people post, if you're a newbie and you have a question or comment, feel free to post it in our RSVP threads for the open source Hangouts. And one question was from a guy named Clicks Money. And of course, I'll open it up for anybody to answer questions for him too, if you feel like I am not doing a good job with anything specifically, or if I've missed something and I've done a good job, whatever. Right? What is BitShares and how to earn with it? BitShares has worker proposals where you can build or perform some service that the chain thinks is extremely valuable and necessary. Alfredo is a good example with his worker proposal that we just talked about a little bit. And he is getting paid to work for the blockchain. And the community has found a consensus around this. And if for any reason he were to fail on his duties, which we don't suspect obviously will happen, but if for instance, if something like that did happen, we're going to have things like Xerox escrow man. So we're building some cool things there. You can make a lot of money in that area, or you can have a lifetime membership, LTM, which I don't know. Does anybody know the exact prices right now? I'm assuming it's around $250 or $300 for an LTM.
I don't recall the latest number, especially with the change in price.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's pretty close. It won't be exact, but that's
it's in that ballpark.
Yeah. So you get the LTM, the lifetime membership, and then you can start referring people to the network to start seeing what it's like to actually use a decentralized exchange. But then there's also the possibility, if you're a developer and you don't want to go any of those routes and you're interested in maybe starting up your own exchange gateway, or numerous other services that you believe will bring value to the ecosystem, you can buy some BitShares, develop it, and know that you have a good chance, or at least a chance, of your service becoming a valuable service that you think it is, and maybe making a lot of money in the BitShares network that way. So there's a lot of different ways that you earn in the ecosystem. Does anybody think that I've missed anything?
Yes. No, I don't think you've missed anything. I think, and as you were highlighting with all of these various approaches, there are multiple ways to earn BitShares, and just earning them through workers is just but one of many ways to earn them. Yep.
The power of proof of stake. When you don't have to spend all of your extra money on electricity, you can distribute it to people who are creating electricity and building things for it, right? Which is very cool, or helping in other interesting ways. So with that said, there is a question about BTS Wallet's issue with Open Ledger. I will always say, to make it pretty easy for a newbie, well, maybe it's not easy, but it's a learning curve worth getting used to and understanding, especially in this day and age, is to download your own wallet. You can have an Open Ledger wallet. There's nothing wrong with that. You can access it from any computer via the web. That's a great deal. But if you have issues, what I find myself always having to go back to is having two different wallets, having the Open Ledger one and then having a downloaded client wallet, a local client wallet. And if you get that running, you'll notice that it's pretty much exactly like Open Ledger's experience. So if you're having problems with resyncing to the server or something like that, first you might want to check your clocks and make sure that they're synced up. But if that's not the case, and that everything's fine on that front, having your own local client is not only a little bit safer, but it also tends to be a little bit more stable, at least in my experience. Does anybody have any thoughts on this?
I think that's a good call. And in generally summarizing it, you have the online wallets, which can maybe make your life easier, especially for new people. And then for greater security, just download it onto your own system.
And this is talking you're talking.
Yes, that's right.
Yep. And then BSIP 18 is something that was brought up that somebody wanted to. I think it was me.
It was me.
Is it Cyano?
Yes, also known as PC.
Okay. Okay. Well, how's it going, Peter?
Yeah, fine, thanks.
All these different names, man.
Yes, Cyano is my company, and PC is my initials.
Awesome. Well, okay. You wanted to bring up the BSIP 18. So you're speaking up right now, so I figure maybe you would like to talk about it. Would that be, or are you wanting me to talk about it?
I wanted to talk about it, and the subject has been brought up in the last Hangout, which I couldn't attend to, unfortunately. So anyway, I think the subject is well known. It's about market-pegged assets that have seen a black swan, and BSIP 18 is one of two proposals that aim to revive such assets to make them useful again. This week, Xerox has brought me into contact with the BitShares Foundation and has also published a worker proposal on my behalf for implementing BSIP 18. That's why I wanted to bring the subject up here in this forum and answer any questions that might arise.
Well, this is something that, first off, I'll say Gridcoin suffered from this global settlement event. And that's what this is about, the global settlement event, right? Whenever a black swan, like if a prediction market, essentially everything is settled in, and it's no longer, all the orders are essentially dead, right? The prediction market kind of just stops. So you guys are talking about using a pool to stop, from what I understood, it's stopping the price feeds at a certain point, letting it settle, and having a pool that you draw from. Is that correct?
First of all, we have to make a distinction between prediction markets and market-pegged assets here. Prediction markets are about predicting a certain event that is about to happen at some point in the future. And when that event has a specific outcome, the prediction market is settled on purpose. So essentially, the prediction market is about placing a bet on something, and once the bet has a result, the market ends in a way. That is not what is covered by BSIP 18. BSIP 18 is only about market-pegged assets, where we have the problem that these are backed by collateral in some way, and due to price volatility, it can happen that the value of the collateral is not sufficient to nominal value of the market-pegged asset. That's what happened to Gridcoin, for example. It also happened to, I believe, the original ruble MPA and the Swedish crown MPA quite some time ago, and we've also seen some more black swans recently. I don't know what it was. For a market-pegged asset, when a black swan happens, the available collateral is put into a settlement pool from which the asset holders are made whole if they want to, or they should be made whole, but there's also a bug that currently prevents that. So the idea of BSIP 18 is, it's actually several ideas. The obvious thing is to fix the bug that prevents people from exchanging their asset for the collateral that's collected in the pool.
Can I ask a real quick question?
Yes.
How does this bug prevent, for a newbie who's just listening to this, does this is a bug, which means that it's not intended, right? It wasn't designed to do this, But why does this bug prevent settlement?
Settlement is also for a live MPA, the process where you can exchange your MPA for the collateral at the settlement price. The settlement price is normally defined through the price feed, and that mechanism is what creates the peg in the end.
So the price feed stops whenever this happens, and then it causes a chain reaction of events, essentially.
Yes, when a black swan happens, price feeds can no longer be published for the asset. And the bug is you need a price feed in order to settle. So there's even a test case in the code that checks that MPAs can be settled even after a black swan, but unfortunately the test case does not take into account that the price feed will expire at some time, and after the price feed expires, settlement is no longer possible. That's clearly a bug.
Yeah.
And if I could just jump in quickly, just to reiterate what PC mentioned, and the sequence is roughly due to insufficient collateral at an aggregate level for a particular asset, a black swan will occur. That's roughly step one. And then step two is the market is considered black swaned. And then roughly step three, there should be the ability for current asset holders to settle and exchange their asset for the underlying collateral of BTS. But due to this particular bug that PC is talking about, there is currently not that ability.
It's not really at an aggregate level, is it? Isn't it the least collateralized position? So it's not really aggregated. It's the individual that is the least collateralized that causes the black swan.
No, it's at the aggregate level where everybody combined. So where everybody combined cannot back up all of the assets. Is that incorrect?
No, Thomas is right.
Okay, thank you.
I read something about it being the least collateralized causes the chain of events, essentially. And I think it was CM Steam who was talking.
Yeah, it's in fact so that the least collateralized short position causes the black swan, and at that point settlement works by using the collateral ratio of the least collateralized short position to define the black swan price, and at that price all short positions are closed. That is, the collateral is collected into a pool, and the remaining collateral, if there is any, is paid out to the shorters. But that's, I think, minor details. Interesting if you want to understand the process, but not quite relevant to the BSEP.
So the BSEP is then to revive and address an asset that has black swan. Is that correct?
Exactly. The idea is we have some collateral in the settlement pool, and in the typical case, that will not on its own be sufficient to revive the asset. But I think it can be assumed that in most cases there will be some people interested in reviving the asset. And the idea is to allow them to put additional collateral into the pool so that in the end the collateral is sufficient to cover not only the outstanding debt, but also on top of that what's usually the margin call ratio in a normal short position. So with that, the available collateral from the settlement pool plus the collateral that is provided by interested parties are used to create a new short position or several new short positions that will cover the whole debt And at that point, we can simply reactivate everything and thereby enable or revive the asset again. That is the basic idea.
What is the indication for witnesses that are doing price feeds that it's okay to resume price feeds?
Well, the point there is that witnesses could simply continue publishing price feed for an asset after it has seen a black swan. Witnesses don't really have to care about that. Right now, price feeds are no longer possible after a black swan, but that restriction would have to be removed.
Was there a reason why it was put in place in the beginning that we might want to take into consideration?
I honestly don't know, but the thing is, the price, the normal settlement price that is derived from the various price feeds published by all the witnesses is not removed in case of a black swan. It's left to sit there until it expires. That's why I think there cannot really be a good reason or a strong reason why price feeds simply continue. It's perhaps to avoid confusion from market participants when it's a price feed, but the price defined by the feed is actually invalid, then because the actual price is defined by the swan price. Is there a potential attack vector that people would make use of with regard to changing the way that this operates now, in terms of if there was somebody that wanted to trigger a black swan event, could that be something that somebody could take advantage of, because that mechanism of triggering the black swan event by the least collateralized position is something that actually it incentivizes people not to put a lot more collateral in than the minimum. Well, that is an interesting question, but I think it has also been discussed about 2 years ago or so. The thing is, it is theoretically certainly possible to manipulate prices, for example, in order to cause a black swan, but I think BitMaster's original argument there was that the cost of causing such an event much higher than what can be gained from it. I'm not sure if that argument holds, but I think it's pretty good. There's also the point that the margin call ratio finds a minimum amount of collateral you have to put in order to create a short position in the first place. So you have to put in much more money than is the nominal value of the assets that you create thereby. So there's already some protection in place against price manipulation. I guess if there was a nefarious individual that wanted to do harm to the network and cost wasn't an objective, for instance, governments or bankers or whoever, then they could do it even though it's going to cost them more. So that kind of blows the argument that BitMaster has. But I don't know if there's anything that we can do about that, frankly. So it's probably not a consideration that we should build into the code, because I think you can't do it.
I don't know. I do know that if that's an argument, that there are potentially competitors who could, I mean, in this space, if somebody were to attack the big dog, which is what happens, let's face it, that's what happens. That's just what happens. And that's, knowing that if we crack that pinata, we're going to get a bunch of, our market cap's going to grow substantially. There can be returns, like this can be seen as an investment to attack BitShares, where even though it costs more than I make in the network from attacking it, I
just want to add something. Like at first I was a little confused because I was just looking up again an old BitMaster article was talking about Black Swan as any time the value of the least collateralized short position is less than the balance according to the price feed published by the delegates. Wouldn't that mean there'd literally have to be collusion among all the delegates to actually pull that off? Because at first I thought, from what we discovered last week, I was still about to write about, could you be triggering this literally, with that ability to trade through any price? Could that actually create a black swan, which I'm still kind of mind-boggled that people can actually do that. And, you can buy at 10 even though there's an offer at 5. But that doesn't seem to be the case for a black swan. It seems it has to do with the median price feed from the delegate.
Yeah. Go ahead, PC.
Yeah, collusion from the delegates or witnesses is one method to cause a black swan. The other is to actually manipulate the price on external exchanges, which is the base on which the delegates or witnesses determine the actual price they publish.
Okay, so that's what you're seeing. Like if they mess around on Poloniex or something like that, they're doing it almost without even realizing it, is the other potential concern there.
Yes.
That's a good point. I was thinking just in terms of collusion, like there might be a problem that all witnesses feeds on, that use a certain tool or something that they don't realize that they're failing. But I have noticed really the BitShares network, I have little tentacles everywhere to watch it. And the witnesses are on top of their stuff. They really do. Like whenever somebody's got a feed off, or like I see it within hours, sometimes a lot quicker. But I think before 51% of all the price feeds are kind of become the consensus on it, the network would notice it.
Yes, the problems are known by the witnesses. They are aware of that. And for example, one weak point has been for a long time that there were only one or two scripts with which the price feed was generated. But that is a point that is being worked on, and we have more scripts today than we had some time ago. So decentralization is the key, like it always is.
Hey, PC, would you mind discussing briefly about the least collateralized issue and its similarity or differences between a regular margin call for an individual versus a black swan event for the entire market?
The margin call is okay, if the collateralization ratio of an individual short position drops the margin call ratio, then the short position is margin call. That is, the blockchain has to automatically buy back the asset from the market using the collateral. And it does so up to 10% above the actual settlement price. Actually, the 10% above is also a parameter that is published price feed. That's called the short squeeze ratio. A black swan happens when that attempt at buying back the asset fails because the market is not sufficiently liquid. At that point, the debt cannot be paid for by the short position, and that situation is what is called a black swan.
Great, thank you for the recap.
A general question about shorting. So when the margin is called, what exactly happens at that point? You kind of outlined it for the black swan event, but what in general happens when you have a short position and your margin called?
Like I said, your short position is essentially turned into a buy order on the market and tries to buy up as much of the asset market as possible, and but only until through such buying your collateral ratio improves so much that you get out of the margin call zone again.
So you relinquish your collateral. If you have a short position and this happens to you, you have collateral, you relinquish the collateral and then you own the asset?
No, the asset that is bought is immediately subtracted from your debt. So you don't actually get hold of the assets that are bought using your collateral.
So you lose the collateral and you lose the asset?
Well, you don't lose the full collateral, only the part that is used to the asset. So, for example, say you have $100 debt, and that is covered by, for example, 1,000 BTS, and suppose the price feed defines the settlement price plus margin call ratio, so that it would be 1,100 BTS, for example. So you are in the margin call zone. At that point, some of the collateral is used to buy from the market. And for example, if you buy $10 for 100 BTS, that will improve your collateral ratio. So you are then $90 and no, a bad example. I'm bad at maths, I have to admit. But,
well, that's all right. It's a complicated thing. I would really like to see an example of this. I'm not much of a trader either, so understanding how this works in BitShares, because it's different than it is in the stock market and other margin-related things, is very important for us to describe. And I've been very fuzzy on this since I started investing in the heroes.
Yeah, it's complicated, but I can try to come up with an example and post it on the forum.
Thank you so much.
If you do that, I'll sponsor it with, if you post it also to Steam, I'll sponsor it with some Beyond Bits. That'll be like, I'll give you like $500 worth of them. And we can maybe do a little competition to get somebody to do a video to show it. I have a visualization of it, but I think I'm missing a couple pieces because everything changes so much. Right. So anyway, does anybody have anybody who hasn't spoken have any questions or comments about what everybody's been talking about?
I'd still be interested in hearing more perspectives on why it was implemented in the way where you can cross the bid and the offer to the extent that you can without an internal matchup. Because that also seems like, certainly an opportunity for, black swan type events, though it might not necessarily trigger something in this case, but I don't know if it would trigger a potential margin call either. But I mean, the fact that you can have someone sitting at the offer at 5 and then buy at 10 from them or someone else, I'm still not quite sure how it always matches up. It's just kind of crazy to me. And maybe someone else has a little more insight into that, like why it was designed that way, or?
Well, in part, I can also only make assumptions about it. The subject was discussed rather broadly, I think, about two years ago when BitShares 2 was implemented. I didn't follow the discussions at that time into every detail. The general idea is the shorter is in a way responsible to pay back his debt to the blockchain. And the blockchain, on the other hand, has to protect the long positions from a black swan. And the idea of the margin call and short squeeze ratio is to provide incentives to market participants to get the under-collateralized shorts away from the market by simply creating a method for buying things out. Idea to buy things out above the usual market price is simply meant as an incentive for other market participants to actually sell the asset into these margin calls at the higher price.
Well, in reality, though, it doesn't certainly work that way, because that's, you might as well just be sitting there waiting for something that might never happen, kind of like a low bid or a low offer. I mean, here it's like literally, if anything, it's more of a deterrent to liquidity and other things. I mean, you see someone literally sitting there, they're not even expecting to get a higher price than they're offering, but suddenly someone just makes a fat finger of some sort and then buys, instead of sweeping the offers, they're buying 50% higher or 100% higher. It seems like it would have the complete opposite effect. I don't know.
Yes, markets are difficult to interpret at times, and There are many aspects that play a role there, and I think even ByteMaster didn't really foresee how things would work out with the bit assets. Otherwise, we wouldn't have seen black swans at all. It's called a black swan because nobody expected that it would ever happen, and it has happened quite often. That's why we are talking about the subject here today.
Also, one thing that I don't know that everybody quite understands who's new about this, but there's also the ability to kind of test parameters and make your own customized smart coins, essentially. So we don't know yet a lot because I don't know if smart coin idea has ever really been done in this way. Maybe it has in some way, shape, or form that I've missed, but the closest thing I've seen is like prediction markets. But they share very similar stuff, so maybe that's something. But the ability to create a competing bit asset that might, its parameters might make it a little bit more resilient to certain types of events. You know what I mean? Kind of almost like we're still kind of like filling out all that information. That was a heck of a beat, Johnny. But I got to mute everybody. Sorry. Okay.
I would also
go ahead.
Just like to highlight that PC was both extremely helpful during the incident early this week, and also in identifying the root cause of what caused that incident. So he is very helpful and capable to the community.
That's a good segue into that topic, indeed. So are we going to speak about the incident on Monday now, then?
Segue. And I will say, PC, you're always working on stuff, man. You're one of the people who's been here very early on. And you've done a lot of dang near free work at times for our community. So thank you. Yeah, for sure.
Thanks.
One of the hidden pillars of our community, not totally hidden, but you stay in the background a lot, but you do an extraordinary amount of work. You
guys know the painting that Cass made with the BitShares symbol and just the tip of the iceberg, right? I always think oh, you've never seen it, Talkinator? It's beautiful because Cass makes beautiful art, but I see that. I'm lucky enough to see that part, the part that's under the water. And you're right. PC one up.
Yeah, it's a great community, and it's really fun to be.
And to figure out what we're doing, sometimes try to learn from everything that we're doing.
So should we chat briefly about the incident earlier this week?
Yes, I think we should.
Sorry, with you, Fuzzy?
Yeah, go after it.
Okay. And of course, anybody please step in if I mischaracterize it. So on Monday, what occurred was suddenly the witnesses were not producing new blocks. Immediately, as far as my first noticing it was, I noticed a post by Abit, or a bit more, posting a notice that, to call everyone's attention to it. And then also PC, and then various others, including Ox and Buzz and Roland and Fox, they were right at the beginning on top of it, investigating, what is going on and trying to identify specifically, at least to identify where approximately did an issue arise. And then also they were proceeding. They had identified roughly, which block some issue had occurred. And then also various witnesses were coming in to provide any assistance as necessary. ByteMaster also came in to also help out and to try to dig down further while everybody was working together and also in parallel to identify what had occurred. And finally, ByteMaster, Abit had identified already. It was either Abit or PC who had identified a particular flaw in particular data in a particular asset. And ByteMaster had then attempted an approach where we clearly had identified it was a particular index, and he said, okay, let's attempt to change this by addressing a particular database data structure. He attempted a solution and that appeared to have worked. And then that was subsequently deployed in coordination with the witnesses, because that would also have to be carefully done just to ensure proper block production. And that proceeded. And once that seemed to be working well, then all the witnesses were encouraged to go out and just deploy this particular patch. And that's how the chain came back up. And so I think as I recall, I think we had the minimum 2/3 witnesses updated. As I recall, it was approximately 10 hours later, maybe 10 to 12 hours later. So that was the recap, as I recall it, from Monday.
I think
yes,
that
it was actually Abit who did most of the digging and who found the broken data. And I was really impressed by the speed with which ByteMaster found and fixed the problem.
Yep.
Your overview and summary, I think, was quite accurate, talking to it. Very good.
Thanks. And also, I did leave out from that description, both Fox and Fave, I thought, did an excellent job in communicating with the public about the ongoing investigations and also providing them with updates, and finally when everything was deployed. And I think that was very helpful for just proper communications to let everybody know that it was being investigated. So also thanks to them as well.
Do you know why it seemed to take some witnesses so long to, or just other nodes so long to like, kind of resync? It seems like a bunch of them even needed to go from scratch again.
I think there are a couple of issues. One of them is, depending on how it is started up, sometimes it needs to be started up from scratch. And also another sister-related issue is which seed nodes are available to provide that data for starting from scratch. They might be overloaded. So those were a couple of the issues that were observed and are being looked into, how to expedite that in the future. Is that a fair characterization, Tom and PC?
I think it is. Yes,
definitely. The startup time is one thing that really needs addressing. That took, if startup times were significantly lower, we might have saved a couple of hours.
Yeah, it seemed it was. I mean, between the time the fix was out was actually amazingly fast. It was the that syncing issue that seemed to knock a lot of people out, and then the nodes just couldn't get back up again in a timely manner.
Yes. So that is an issue, and that was also discussed while during the restoration, and so that is something that's an issue that's going to be looked into to expedite that for the future.
There are some potential solutions from Steam, I believe, for that to address that issue, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you might have said it there too. Like if some nodes for whatever reason were knocked down, and somehow a bunch of others were connecting to that, maybe you actually need like some sort of round robin pool that people can choose from right off the bat. That's pretty much up to date. Maybe there's something in there. I mean, I don't know nearly as well as you guys do, but I'm figuring it's something there that needs looking at too.
You know, Alex,
yeah, something like that with the pool of seeds.
You know, Alex, it's open source. You can go look at it.
You know how much of this stuff I've been trying to go through already? It's not. I'm sure you can appreciate it's not a quick process.
No,
I finally ripped apart the API enough to be dealing with the WebSocket directly and other things. Like just from the chat room, but there's a lot there.
We need to get you into the dev Telegram, by the way.
And there's a brief write-up of the incident that is available actually at the BitShares Foundation website. And there is also with a link to further discussion on GitHub about it.
Yeah, I have to check that because I still quite didn't understand how just literally that index format that they were using hit some sort of a limit or something. I was curious to look or understand that a little better too. I have to check the GitHub again. Because it really was an amazingly simple little thing. It's just one of those, that was a black swan event in itself. I mean, I've seen stuff in my own work, it's always the stupidest little weird thing like out of the blue. It's like, oh man, how didn't I see that or whatever? And that looks like exactly one of these things, which, it's a double-edged bittersweet sword there in a way. But
yeah.
Good news, it wasn't, a fundamental flaw or anything.
Right. Right. ByteMaster had implemented a patch around the issue, and then PC wrote up a description of the root cause, which is available on the GitHub issue for this.
That was actually one thing I was wondering if might have led to extra time too, is since it was an indexing issue, I was thinking maybe some of the nodes got caught in a big re-index, which, can take some time also. But from what you're saying, it doesn't sound like even that was as much of an issue.
That was certainly part of it. All nodes had to completely re-index the blockchain after the patch was implemented. They couldn't just start with an old version of the database.
I'm kind of curious if people have opinions on if Bytemaster hadn't got involved to sort this problem, how long would it have taken to get back up and running?
That's a question I think no one wants to really bring up, probably.
Well, somebody just brought it up, but I don't know if there's any way to definitively answer it.
Well, I think it's impossible to come up with a meaningful time that it might have taken.
Exactly. Too many variables involved.
I'm sure we would have fixed it eventually, but I really can't tell how long it would have taken.
Yeah, I think that's the most fair answer you could say.
I asked a question about a link to the BitShares Foundation. I noticed that Xerox published some things about it that he said that it was established a year ago, but I don't see any evidence for that. But I'm just looking for more information, so I just Googled BitShares Foundation, and I haven't seen any way to find it yet.
Chat, it's in there.
Thanks.
For the audio archive, it's www.bitshares.foundation.
You know what was another interesting thought I was kind of getting out of this, which was a little bit scary, since it was also being described as a memory corruption issue. Well, I guess, there are always going to be backups, but, when memory corruption is involved at that level on every single node, you probably know what I'm about to say is that technically that can comprise every single entire blockchain. So yeah, technically you might actually be forced to go to a previous backup just to recover the original state.
Fox is bringing up that one of the reasons why Dan is so quick to find the solution is that he implemented the flat index replacement for Steam, and that was apparently, if I'm wrong on this, please let me know. But this is something that needs to be updated in BitShares too, or needed to.
Yes, that's right. It was a change that had been done for the Steam chain, which was different than BitShares. And also, just to follow up on one point, Alex, that you mentioned, it was actually curiously all the other nodes besides witness nodes actually remained up. It was just that the witness nodes themselves that encountered this issue, well, they were taking care of a particular witness-specific task of maintenance. So all the other nodes were up and were able to provide data up until the last block that had been signed by a witness.
Right. Ironically, that's an interesting sort of safety dynamic in there. But of course, it could. Yeah, there's always a possibility for a total glitch. I think it should be relatively safe because it's sort of like just a message, like works more like a Kafka kind of thing, where the past messages should be pretty safe. But, when memory corruption comes in, weird stuff can pop up. So
sure.
I appreciate everybody joining this week. Is there anybody who feels like we haven't covered something that is important for this kind of weekly recap?
Well, one thing that Fox kind of highlights or indicates here is that it's important that we maintain the existing BitShares code base, and that means taking advantage of any enhancements that the child chains that are based on graphene come into play, like Steam was, for example. And that we have addressed. We have a worker that's full-time doing this now with I forget who it is now, but anyway, Garcia.
Yeah,
yes, that's right.
Yeah, so that's an important thing to take into consideration, that we have people scanning these alternate chains for enhancements for what can be input in for BitShares.
And to follow up, and I totally agree with that. It's valuable to have this worker in the form of Alfredo Ox. However, it is also too much for just one person to handle, both in terms of maintenance and also implementing additional features. So that's something that I think I will bring up in future discussions.
Yeah, more. It's more than one person can handle, no doubt about it.
And we have funding to pay for these things. And when everybody really thinks about it, when you have another chain out there that has essentially done most of the hard work to accomplish something or found something that, this is a valuable thing for our chain, or this chain did something that we don't think is valuable for our chain. If we can actually kind of have that grocery list that we can go down and say, oh, we would like to try this. That's a powerful thing to have all these different blockchains that are also kind of test grounds for solutions that we might seek for ourselves. So
it's one of the things in the Bitcoin chain that has not taken place. When Litecoin was put out there, a lot of people thought that they would fold in some of the changes discovered in Litecoin back into Bitcoin, but it hasn't happened because of the lack of governance and control over the Bitcoin and how that's growing. So we don't have that drawback. So if we can take advantage of child issues that come up, of child developments that come up, and incorporate them based on our governance, I think that would be a huge benefit to keeping BitShares alive and growing with the rest of the ecosystems that are out there and evolving.
Yep. We get so much bang for our buck paying worker proposals for people who want to do this stuff. So great point. I think it's perfect. Is it good for us to end on that?
I think that's good.
I think that's a great place to end. Thank you for joining up this week. I'll just remind everybody that next week we're going to start about an hour early, and I would just like you to all consider joining up and a little bit early, and maybe start working on or bringing something to people that are here, and maybe we can work on stuff. I know I will come up with plenty of quests for all of us, but bring your own quests too, because I don't want to take it over. But I want to get everybody working on something for an hour before we do these hangouts. So we'll talk to you guys next week, and looking forward to it.
Thanks for listening. Check in next Friday at 1 p.m. UTC for another edition of Beyond Bitcoin.